US Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy in a recent one-on-one interview with Ezra Levant at a trucker town hall that was conducted in Iowa has provided candid and insightful commentary on Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, wherein he's called him a pawn and a puppet of aristocratic elites. He also expressed concern over the Canadian government's handling of the trucker freedom convoy, which addresses the alleged weaponization of the financial system. As Canada's relations with India are already turning sour and now a presidential candidate is hit out at Trudeau, is this the start of the shunning out of Trudeau is the big question.
He's somehow a visionary in his own right. He's not. He's a pawn for a managerial class, both within and outside of Canada, that uses people like him as a pawn to advance a transnational globalist agenda that has a single hegemonic view that is fundamentally skeptical of self-governance, does not believe in people's ability to govern themselves, believes in a worldview where people need to be told what the right way is or isn't to live by a small group of aristocratic elites in the back of palace halls. That was the old world European view. It's what's alive and well in Canada, unfortunately, today. And the idea that Trudeau's actually the guy calling the shots is a joke. He's just a puppet, a pawn for that deeper, what I would call permanent state.
Ambassador Suresh Goel, former diplomat, is joining us live. We also have Major General G.D. Dwivedi, a strategic affairs analyst, joining us live. Sanjeev Srivastava, foreign affairs expert, also is with us live. Joyita Basu, editor of the Sunday Guardian, is also joining the broadcast. Let me begin with you first, Ambassador Goel. What do you make of this stinging commentary made by Ramaswamy on Trudeau?
Very surprising and very strange, considering that this actually is an election year in the USA, and not many, in fact, if you look at the record of the presidential candidates making speeches, not many of them really make a comment on any issue of substantive foreign policy as a candidate, or particularly their neighboring countries and partners. A Five Eye partners across the border, like Canada. But on the other hand, I think Vivek Ramaswamy really working as a candidate, and he was actually, if I have to go by the stories on this issue on the social media, he was giving this interview in the context of a truckers town hall in Iowa, and if you remember, there had been a huge issue just around 21 or 22, particularly after the COVID time, when there were huge restrictions on the movement of truckers across the border into Canada. And there was this large queue, there were demonstrations by the truckers against the Canadian government for putting those restrictions. So I wonder whether he is actually addressing the truckers because of that. He may be thinking that the truckers are having the same grounds again against Trudeau, and therefore, as an election speech, he could persuade truckers to vote for him if he were to really give names to the name Trudeau or criticize Trudeau. Otherwise, it's really not very often that you will hear a presidential candidate criticizing their allies, particularly the ones across the border, during the election speech.
Yes, let me get in Major General Dwivedi's take as well on this. Major General Dwivedi, what do you read into these comments, the fact that Ramaswamy has chosen to roast Trudeau in this manner?
Well, Uday, first and foremost, like to wish NewsX team Merry Christmas, and also to your viewers, and our good wishes to everyone on this very auspicious day. Now, coming to your question as to what we make out of Mr. Ramaswamy's remark in conjunction to Trudeau. Well, I won't go into what is the internal politics of the remarks, but I'll pick out on the remarks per se. I think the remarks are well founded, because what Trudeau has been doing is very narrow political gains at the cost of Canada's national interest. And he has been playing to the gallery, very restricted gallery, because he wants to survive, and his rating, popularity rating, is actually plummeted. It is barely at 17%, and he has been trying to distract the local polity, the local domestic scene, and trying to internationalize it. And he has been very vocal. And in fact, I think anti-India in his remarks. There are two, three reasons for this. First and foremost, because his political fortunes are taking a plunge, so he is trying to get support of the fringe elements, and that is the Khalistani elements per se. Secondly, he has played a blind eye to people like Niger, who has radicalized the Khalistani movement and even weaponized them. He has actually been giving tacit support, and that also needs to be taken care of. And third, I think very important point is that this has repercussions on the Indo-Canadian relations, which were on a very positive path and I think very healthy one. And he is trying to actually cause huge damage to this relationship by trying to internationalize the issues which are purely, I think, domestic, because India has no hand in whatsoever way into what Niger is killing. These are all interfactional, killings and revenges, and we have no role to play. So I'll only say that Mr. Ramaswamy's remarks are well founded and they are very candid, notwithstanding what is the intent, but the content per se is very right, and I think it is what Mr. Trudeau deserves. Uday.
Okay, let me in fact take that across to Sanjeev Srivastav as well. Sanjeev, what do you make of these remarks made by Vivek Ramaswamy, and what do you believe have spurred them in the first place?
Well, first of all, Merry Christmas to you, Merry Christmas to my fellow distinguished panelists and to all the viewers. And, as my previous speaker, General Saab has said, that Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau truly deserves such remarks. And the kind of politics, the kind of approach, whether it is in domestic politics or in international politics, he is having, I think that shows the kind of, immature way of handling things anyone can go into, and he has demonstrated all that immaturity in his behavior in recent times. And the worst victim of this kind of behavior has been the vast big India-Canada relationship. Also, I would say that the kind of approach he has shown to the various issues like terrorism and extremism, he has weakened the resolve of the international community, which is obviously very much determined to fight against this terrorism and extremism. But this kind of a double standards, which has been shown by Canadian Prime Minister, has certainly weakened the international, resolve and coalition to fight against terrorism and extremism. Though other parties are also somewhat responsible for this kind of, weakening. But having said that, let me say here that Justin Trudeau is having a very narrow mindset. He is obviously attempting to survive in the Canadian politics. He is running a minority government, and that government is obviously being supported by a party which is supporting extremism and terrorism, the New Democratic Party. Let me say very clearly, Jagmeet Singh, the leader of this party, and the kind of support he has got from this party, and because of that support, he has attempted to sacrifice India-Canada relationship, and that shows his immaturity. That's why I'm saying that the kind of approach he has shown to the domestic politics of Canada and to the world politics, he has completely, dented his image. And that is why the other leaders, the prospective leaders like Vivek Ramaswamy, who could acquire very important positions in the upcoming elections, and I think that kind of remarks from a very significant leader of the United States of America clearly shows the kind of image at this point of time Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is carrying. And I think, as I said, that he has completely, put India-Canada relationship in a very tense situation. But also, if he carries on with this kind of approach, then obviously he will be heavily criticized, not only by the countries whom the relationship is harming, but also a very close ally like the United States of America.
Absolutely. Joyita Basu, let me draw you in here. Do you believe these remarks are fair that have been made by Vivek Ramaswamy, and what do you believe has made him make these comments in this detailed interview that he's given during this big event there?
Uh, First thing that needs to be understood is that any candidate, I mean, hoping to become the either presidential face or vice presidential face of any party, be it Democratic, be it Republican, will not make any loose comment unless and until they are catering to a particular voting base. And that is what exactly Ramaswamy is doing. Ramaswamy is catering to a particular voting base in the Republican camp in terms of, the working class. The working class people who are against two things. Number one, they are against, a majority of the Republican voter base is against vaccination. And apart from that, when we are I'm talking about vaccination because we have to see it in context of Trudeau's push for vaccination before the truckers' protest and all. So what happened was that now there is a huge sympathy in Canada among the right, those center of right and the conservatives and the working class population about what happened in the truckers' protest. They are largely against Trudeau, and because those people are very closely aligned with the working class population, primarily the Republican voters in the US. So there is some resonance of that trucker protest with what happened to them. And let's face it, that vaccine mandate, the truckers, everything whatever Trudeau did, Trudeau came across as a huge authoritarian. So there is a buzz that is growing, not just in this Canada. Anyway, Canada, Trudeau's popularity ratings have totally gone down to the extent that the opposition leader, even if Trudeau and that Khalistani friend of his, if they stand, even then they will be beaten. So Trudeau is in a bad shape. So what is happening? There is a lot of reflection of that unhappiness with Trudeau, that Trudeau's authoritarianism, Trudeau's push for vaccine mandate, the way Trudeau handled the truckers' protest, the way he imposed emergency, there is a lot of unhappiness with that in the among the working population that forms the Republican voter base. So when Vivek Ramaswamy is talking about it, it's very interesting. He is talking against somebody, those unseen capitalist forces, and here is the US, which is the epitome of capitalism. So when you are looking at it as an outsider, it comes across as hypocrisy. But you see, that is what I think the speciality about the US is that, they will be, the working class population will be talking against capitalism, but they are actually all followers of capitalism. So basically he is, and World Economic Forum, if you look at that interview, he has talked against World Economic Forum and all. So he is pandering to his voter base, and it's all about that. It's all about his own politics. It's all about Republican politics. It's all about the voter base.
Yes, absolutely. Let me, in fact, quickly bring back in Sanjeev Srivastava on this. Sanjeev, clearly, obviously, he's catering to a certain population, which is why he's making these remarks in the first place, Vivek Ramaswamy. But what he's saying is pretty true, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's what precisely I was saying, that the criticism Justin Trudeau is facing not only from the country, our nation, but also a very close ally like the United States of America, and their top leadership like Vivek Ramaswamy is going to be having a very significant place in the US politics in times ahead, in my assessment. And I think the kind of statement he's making about a very close friend and partner like Canada, that is certainly, not a good news for Justin Trudeau. And though certainly, Joyita, I agree with you, Joyita, here, that he is attempting to address his domestic constituency, the core voter base, and those struggles and the kind of policies that Justin Trudeau has adopted against them in Canada. The similar kind of sentiments might be prevailing there, and certainly is trying to capitalize on those sentiments. But when it comes to criticism of some policy, or the criticism of some person who is the prime minister of a neighboring country, that is a different thing altogether. And that shows the kind of image, the kind of negative, persona at this point of time Justin Trudeau is carrying. And it is the high time for Justin Trudeau to realize the kind of approach he is having, as I said, within the domestic politics of the Canada, and also the international politics. That is not something very constructive, and he will have to do a lot of rethinking if he's looking forward to a brighter political future in Canada. So that's what my assessment is, and I think Justin Trudeau, the kind of remarks he has made against India, the kind of approach he is having towards extremism and terrorism, the kind of approach he has shown to the various protest movements which has gone on in Canadian society, I think that shows the kind of his, again I would say, his immaturity, and it appears that he has not learned any lessons from the legacy what he is carrying in his family.
Does it also show, Ambassador Goel, that there is a certain amount of global unpopularity that is building for Justin Trudeau?
Uday, I really don't know if we can jump to the conclusion that there is a global unpopularity of Justin Trudeau because of whatever he has said. Clearly, by what he said, he has become very, very unpopular in India. He has obviously not paid heed to the Indian sensitivities at all on these issues. He has not really paid any attention to the problem of terrorism and trying to control that kind of a phenomenon within Canada itself. This is all part of the domestic politics. Now, as far as the USA versus Canada is concerned, even though Trudeau spoke in the parliament, he did not draw any criticism from the US government. In fact, on the other hand, the US government came to India trying to basically say that we need to pay attention to what Trudeau has said and investigate the case. So here in this case, USA governmental officially and Canada seem to be on the same side. And again, USA has demonstrated quite amply by the case of Panun, by the indictment of Nikhil Gupta, etc., and by the way they are asking India to investigate the case, that on this issue, Canada and USA are together, even if it is Indian sensitivity. We need to be very careful of it. Vivek Ramaswamy is contesting American elections, not Indian elections. So whatever our sentiments may be, as far as Trudeau is concerned, Vivek Ramaswamy is basically campaigning for the domestic votes, and in the domestic votes, he has found it reasonable and opportunity and suitable to criticize Trudeau for being what it is, the way he handled the truckers' demonstrations in Canada by calling him the manager of the elite, because obviously there is a divide between the truckers and the elite sections of the society. So it's all domestic political infighting. It's all domestic political campaigning, and we must leave it at that. Uday.
Yes. Yes, Sanjeev, you wanted to respond. Go ahead.
One thing I would say here, Uday, that with regard to Gulpatwan Singh Pannu issue, the way United States of America has dealt with us with regard to this entire investigation process, and the way Justin Trudeau has dealt with us, is a complete difference. United States of America raised up this issue during a security cooperation meeting in a closed door setting. But the kind of the way Justin Trudeau raised up this issue, going to his parliament and making all sorts of allegations, guest-based allegations without any investigation, any kind of a probe, he has completely blamed India for this kind of acquisition. So I think that is completely unacceptable, and that shows the kind of immature image he is carrying, the kind of approach he is showing towards the international issues, towards domestic issues, completely puts him in a very negative stage. But on the other hand, if you look at the United States of America and India's dealing with the entire issue of Panun and Nikhil Gupta, etc., I think we have dealt it in a very mature manner, and that's what such issues, such concern should be dealt with.
All right. Let me, in fact, quickly bring in Major General Dwivedi at this point as well. Major General Dwivedi, this obviously does show again, it raises questions over how Trudeau has handled issues or rather mishandled them within his own territory. Obviously, global criticism has come in earlier too on the trucker protest, on of course the handling of the Khalistani issue, but this is yet another, voice speaking out against him.
Well, Uday, first and foremost, politicians are politicians, and they'll all make political statements which further their agenda, their image, and therefore, to that extent, you can't default Mr. Vivek Ramaswamy. After all, he is a presidential candidate, and his remarks just can't be brushed away. They have to be taken with certain degree of, I think, seriousness. That's the point number one. The second point that I wish to make is that Trudeau's line, his policy, his strategy has been of survival because he is in the corner and he is trying to fight out from the corner, and for that he is sacrificing the Canadian national interest for his own personal agenda. And that is quite obvious because he requires the support of fringe element, the Khalistani supporters or sympathizers, and he will go to any extent to do that because his survival is dependent upon these fringe elements. The third point I wish to make is, I belong to Punjab, I stay there. In fact, right now I am speaking from Jalandhar. The kind of support that any anti-government movement in India that has come from Canada, I think shows the intent and also the way the Canadian government is handling the issues, especially with relation to India. And we saw the farmers' agitation. The amount of funding that came in, the amount of support that came in was quite obvious that it was Trudeau who was actually either blindsiding or tacitly supporting all this. So my final point is that we need to quite be aware that for personal interest, Trudeau can sacrifice his national interest. In that, he will try to get support from all his allies. And America and of course Canada are allies, all weather friends, they are partners, and they will try to get support. But when a comment like this comes from an American presidential candidate, I think it has certain meaning and it has certain weight. And we must take it that at least it has been spoken in a candid manner. While others are silent, Mr. Vivek Ramaswamy deserves credit and kudos.
We are beginning to run out of time.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.